On today's show, welcome back, Alperen Sengun.
Hey, Houston fans, I am so happy.
Houston Rockets get the gritty defensive win against the Knicks. Jalen Green struggled for a lot of this game, but showed up when it mattered most in crunch time. And Amen Thompson absolutely put the clamps on Jalen Brunson. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment. Tell me your favorite thing. Tell me the most important thing about this win against the Knicks, or just say go Rockets. It helps us out a ton. So much to get to from this Rockets win. 109-97 against the Knicks. Sengun looked dominant. Jalen Green, clutch. Amen Thompson, a defensive demon. We're going to get to all of it on today's show. Now, today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Rockets get the 109-97 win against the Knicks. And man, this was a fun game. I think this is the best game of the Rockets season so far. I think it slightly beats out the Mavericks win for me. It was so great to see Sengun looking like himself again. Jalen Green showing up in the clutch. The defense from Amen Thompson, the bench contribution, so much to get into. Look, the start of this game, Fred VanVleet got the Rockets off to a really good start. He was hitting basically everything he was throwing up in the first quarter. Maybe some ill-advised looks. We'll talk about that a little bit later down the line. But this was a game where the Rockets led by as many as 15. And due to some, poor closing of halves and quarters and whatnot, and the Knicks making a push in the fourth, New York eventually cut it to a 1-point game in the fourth quarter. But the Rockets were able to hold them off. They were able to stave off the Knicks comeback. And the biggest reason for the Rockets win here, the most important player in this game, was none other than the big man in the middle, Alperen Sengun, who looked like himself again. And that's such an important development for this Houston Rockets team. He was dominant in this game. 25 points on 11 of 15 shooting. He had 14 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocked shots. He was dominant on offense. He was excellent on defense in this game. The only thing Sengun didn't do in this game was hit his threes. He was 0 of 3 from downtown. But if you do the quick math on that, I think he was 11 of 12 inside the arc. The Knicks had nothing for Alperen Sengun. They started with Karl-Anthony Towns on Sengun. That didn't work. Cat got into foul trouble, and he could not hold Sengun at all. Second half rolls around, and Tom Thibodeau decides to adjust, and he puts OG Anunoby on Sengun. It still didn't matter. Sengun scored 10 of his 25 points in the fourth quarter. The Rockets just kept going to him and feeding him. And this game and Sengun's performance in this one in particular was so huge, especially coming off the heels of last game where he was benched, where he didn't play at all in the fourth, or OT, and especially coming off the comments from Ime Udoka last game, where he specifically, kind of criticized Sengun for maybe working himself into shape, whatever. There were a lot of question marks after last game about. And look, if you had the pitchforks out about Ime Udoka, calm down, lower them, relax a little bit. After this game, Ime Udoka said that he had a really good talk with Alperen Sengun ahead of this game about how he can better impact the game in ways that Ime can help him be more effective. And Sengun had easily the best game of this young season so far. And Ime went on to say, I thought he had a phenomenal game. He stuffed the stat sheet across the board and took on the challenge on both ends, right? That's high praise from Ime Udoka. And to me, I think the takeaway here is supposed to be, or should be, that certain matchups are going to favor certain players. And in this one, the Knicks had no answer for Alperen Sengun. He was the driving force for the Rockets in this game. In the first 4 or 5 games of the season, Jalen Green was playing out of his mind, and he was the guy that Ime leaned on and rode to be able to get some of those early wins. And now, for the last couple games, we've seen Jalen Green struggle, and we've seen Alperen Sengun in this one pick up the slack. And when you look at last season and how this Rockets team kind of functioned, on a nightly basis, Sengun was the best player, and he did a pretty good job of showing up most nights. But not every night is going to be your night. You're going to have certain nights where the matchup is not to your advantage, or you struggle, just have an off shooting night, whatever. Last season, there really wasn't somebody else to pick up the slack when Sengun had an off night. This season, Jalen Green clearly looks like a much better version of himself. And if the early stretch, the first 5 or so games, is anything to go off of, and especially even how he closed this game despite struggling for the first 3.5 quarters, that's the really encouraging thing, is we still haven't seen a game where both Sengun and Jalen are dominant in the same game. But the fact that either one of them can step up on a given night and Ime can lean into an offensive style or philosophy more so if one of them has it going, right? In this game, Ime fed the hot hand. He kept going back to Alperen Sengun. He ran so much of the offense through Alp in this game. The Rockets slowed it down. It was a slow, grinded out, gritty game against a really good New York Knicks team. And in some of the earlier games this season, he went with Jalen Green, right? He went with Jalen Green. He rode the hot hand. Jalen was the go-to guy down the stretch. And so I think what that does for this Rockets team and for Ime Udoka is it makes them less predictable. When on any given night, Jalen can be your go-to guy, Sengun could be your go-to guy, they could both have it on. If there's a game where they're both struggling, then the Rockets are pretty screwed. But on any given night, I feel pretty good about one of those two guys having a strong game, and that gives the Rockets a really good chance every single game. And then when you have other guys stepping up, when you have the other key contributors, when you have the clutch time performance from Jalen Green to go along with Alperen Sengun's huge night, Alp did the heavy lifting for about 3.5 quarters of this game, and he helped stave off the Knicks' comeback in that fourth quarter with his 10 points in that final quarter. Jalen Green brought it home at the end. Amen Thompson and Tari Eason and Dillon Brooks had their defensive impact in this game. Fred VanVleet had the early quarter run. Like, it takes a team effort to win, but Sengun was easily the most important factor of the win for this Houston Rockets game, and it was so encouraging to see him play like this again, because this Rockets team, if they want to make noise, if they want to be a playoff team, they need Sengun and Jalen to both play like stars. They're paid like stars, they need to play like stars, and it was great to see Sengun have easily his best game of the season, and hopefully he's able to build off of it moving forward. But coming up, we got to talk about the clutch time performance from one Jalen Green and how Amen Thompson absolutely shut down Jalen Brunson in this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards steps in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off to a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 different hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle goals. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our URL so that they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba to start earning points with your rent payments today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. But that's not the only feature that they have that's absolutely amazing. They've got their ticket coverage, their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect. But my personal favorite is their all-in pricing feature. When you download the Game Time app, you toggle on this feature, and they are fully transparent with your price from start to finish. I don't know about you, but when I'm buying tickets, I hate when I go through the process. At the very end, they hit you with like the digital handling fee and the service charge and the convenience fee. You end up paying more in fees than you do for actual tickets. Doesn't happen with the Game Time. Toggle on the all-in pricing feature, and they are fully transparent from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay, the Rockets managed to win this game, but it wasn't easy, especially because the Rockets let that 15-point lead kind of evaporate, and they let the Knicks get back into it in that fourth quarter. And look, at one point, this was a 1-point game. And once it got into official like clutch time minutes, which is a game decided by, within 5 points, under 5 minutes, it looked a little scary for the Rockets. I mean, this game was 91-90 with 5.5 minutes left to go. And from that point forward, the Rockets did an incredible job of executing offensively, of responding each time that the Knicks hit a shot. They actually limited from that point when it was 93-92 with 4.5 minutes left in the game. It was a 1-point game. The Rockets held the Knicks to just 5 more points over that course of time. I want to focus on the offensive, the execution side of things first, and then I'll get to the defensive side of things. Jalen Green was really bad in this game. Jalen Green really struggled in this game for about 3 quarters, maybe 3.5 quarters even. He finished the night with 15 points on 5 of 15 shooting, 2 of 8 from downtown. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 3 turnovers. But in the fourth quarter alone, Jalen Green had 8 points on 3 of 5 shooting. He was 2 of 2 from downtown. He had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal, all in that 1 quarter, in 7 minutes of run. I want to give Ime Udoka a lot of credit for sticking with Jalen despite his struggles in this game, because Ime had Dillon Brooks over on the bench, and Ime had to pull Dillon Brooks at one point early in the fourth because DB was in foul trouble. He picked up his 5th foul, but Ime could have easily gone to his safety net. He could have stuck with Dillon. He could have been like, oh, Jalen's having a bad game, whatever. But he stuck with Jalen, and Jalen absolutely delivered in crunch time. He hit a huge 3 to give the Rockets just a little bit more breathing room when it was 95-92. It was a 1-possession game with 3.5 to go. Jalen Green hits a huge 3-pointer. Then on the very other end, Mikal Bridges hits a corner 3, and it's back to a 1-possession game. Rockets call a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, the first play out of the timeout was actually really disappointing, and I got really worried that the Rockets were getting ready to collapse in like epic fashion down the stretch of this game. But outside of that 1 possession kind of coming out of the timeout, the Rockets actually did a pretty good job executing down the stretch. They didn't wind up going back to Alperen Sengun, but one of the reasons for that is they were absolutely targeting, and I understand Ime's vision here, they were targeting Karl-Anthony Towns. They were trying to include him in every action that the Rockets were running offensively, and because OG Anunoby was guarding Sengun, it wasn't really advantageous to include Sengun in some of those actions to end the game. Now, maybe you could have gone to another Sengun post-up or so, but what it also allowed, and there were opportunities every time that the Rockets attempted a shot there to close out the game, when Sengun wasn't involved in the action, he was in position to crash the glass. And because he had OG and Anunoby on him, he would have been in great spots to rebound, to recover some of these, these missed shot attempts. Now, thankfully, Rockets actually wound up executing pretty well down the stretch. Jalen Green hit that one big three. Then the Tari Eason had a layup in transition that was created by Jalen Green, getting the rebound, kicking the pass ahead to Tari Eason. And then there was a play with about a minute and a half left in the game where they used Amen Thompson as the screener. And once the Knicks put 2 to the ball with Jalen Green, Jalen executed perfectly, lofted the pass right over the top. Amen caught the pass midair and faked a pass to the corner, and then went up for an easy dunk right at the rim. Just completely froze the Knicks defense. And then to cap it off, well, not really to cap it off, but a couple possessions later, Jalen Green hits an absolutely unbelievable 3 over 2 different Knick defenders. There were 2 Knicks on the ball, 2 sets of outstretched arms, and Jalen Green elevates and drains a 3 to give the Rockets the 105-97 lead with just under a minute to go in this game. That would have been the dagger in this game, but Amen Thompson followed up with a pair of free throws a little bit later in the game, and then to really put the exclamation point on this one, the Knicks were still very much trying to get themselves back into it. Jalen Brunson made it all the way up the court and was falling out of bounds, and Jalen Green was able to tip a pass to himself, stole the ball, and then just gunned it up the court in transition and got a slam to really put the exclamation point on the win for this one for the Rockets. So to see first off, to see Udoka trust Jalen to close this one out, despite his struggles through 3.5 quarters, that's encouraging. And to see Jalen respond and to deliver in crunch time the way that he did, that's huge. And it wasn't just the scoring. It wasn't just hitting the shots. It was the key rebounds. It was the steal. It was the facilitating, right? Making the right decisions down the stretch of this game. We're seeing Jalen Green grow and evolve into a true primary ball handler to where the Rockets don't have to rely on Fred to babysit them and walk them through these critical junctures at the end of games. Jalen Green can be that decision maker for the Rockets, and that's huge for him moving forward. And on top of that, after this game, Jalen Green has the second most clutch points in the NBA. Nikola Jokic is number 1 with 28 total clutch points. Jalen Green is currently number 2 with 27 clutch points in about 24 and a half minutes, where he's shooting 50% overall in the clutch. He's shooting 37.5% on threes and just under 86% from the free throw line. True shooting percentage of 64. Jalen has been phenomenal closing out games. And yes, he struggled through 3.5 quarters, but he showed up when it mattered most, and that's what you need your star players to do. And the fact that Sengun was able to do the heavy lifting in this game, and then Jalen Green was able to bring it home, even better, right? And maybe there will be a flip side. Maybe there will be an inverse of this down the line, right? Where maybe Jalen Green's cooking all game, and then Sengun shows up in the fourth quarter to close things out. It was honestly really cool to see. And Jalen he's been phenomenal as a closer so far, and he could be maybe not a dark horse candidate. If he keeps this up, he's going to be potentially a front runner for Clutch Player of the Year award, but that'd be a really cool honor for Jalen Green to be able to earn for the Houston Rockets. On the other side of the floor, Amen Thompson was just a demon in this game. I mean, Amen was incredible. First off, he finished with 12 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal in just 33 minutes. He got the honor. He got the close. Ime even went to Amen Thompson early in the third quarter because Jabari Smith Jr. was really struggling and had a very uninspired start to his third quarter, or his second half, I guess. And so like 3 minutes into the Third quarter, Ime pulled Jabari out, put Amen Thompson back in, and he definitely rode with Amen Thompson in this game for a large portion of it. But Amen was spectacular. He did the right things on offense. He made the right decisions. He screened well. He rebounded the ball well. But defensively, man, he was on another level in this game. When Amen Thompson was in the game, he was putting clamps on whoever he was guarding. There was a possession where he was guarding Jalen Brunson. It was in the third quarter, I think. He was guarding Brunson. Brunson drove and tried to get something downhill. Couldn't get past Amen. Couldn't deal with him. Brunson flipped the pass back out to OG Anunoby. And then Amen switched on to OG. And then OG, same deal. Struggled to get anything going against Amen Thompson. Had to settle for like a turnaround fadeaway that had like zero chance of going in. And that's just who Amen is. He can be played 1 through 5. It doesn't matter. Put him on whoever you want on the perimeter, and he's going to shut them down. Jalen Brunson did not score in crunch time of this game. He was 1 of 6. His only bucket in the fourth quarter came with like 6 or 7 minutes left in the quarter. He was 1 of 6 with 1 turnover in the fourth quarter with Amen Thompson as his primary defender. The size, the length, the quick twitch ability, the speed, the lateral quickness, everything that Amen Thompson brings to the table as a defender, but it's how he combines all his physical gifts with his defensive IQ. Brunson is a crafty player. Brunson does a lot of shimmies and fakes and he'll try to get you in the air and then take advantage of it and draw the foul. Amen was so disciplined guarding Jalen Brunson. You watch it, right? He stays on his feet. He backs up to give Brunson a little bit of space because he's got the length. It was a defensive masterclass by Amen Thompson. Now look, Brunson had 29 points in this game, but it took him 24 shots to get those 29 points. Like, that is an incredible defensive effort, limiting the Knicks' best player to such an inefficient evening. The Knicks were -8 with Brunson in the game. And again, in that fourth quarter, what was it? Did he actually, what was it, just 2 points, I think, in the fourth quarter? 4 points. Sorry, he got to the free throw line, hit 2 free throws. He also had the 1 bucket, but 5 misses in that fourth quarter. Just incredible defense by Amen Thompson. And you can see Ime Udoka starting to really lean more heavily on Amen Thompson. Like, we're starting to see Ime leaning into Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, right? These guys a little bit more, and maybe getting away from a little bit Dylan Brooks or Jabari or whatever. Like, it's so hard to keep those guys off the floor because they are so insanely productive in the minutes that they get. Coming up, I want to talk about some of the interesting lineups that we saw in this Rockets game. I want to give some props to Dylan Brooks for his defense in this one. Reed Sheppard making an impact off the bench, plus a DNP for Cam Whitmore. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And while you're there, take a look at all the different odds that you have available. Take a look at their parlay builder, different season award specials for the NFL, or just the outright favorites to win this year's Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs plus 380, the Lions plus 500, the Ravens plus 750, the Bills plus 850, and then rounding out the top 5, the 49ers plus 1,000. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So head on over to FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Hims. Look, guys, your sex life is important, but maybe your schedule is really busy, right? You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your very own couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on products and subscription plan. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, one of the best parts of this game was in the second quarter when the Rockets went on a pretty impressive tear to go up by, I think they stretched the score to like 13, maybe 14 during this stretch near the top of the second quarter, where they had a lineup out there of Reed Sheppard, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, and Alperen Sengun. And oh boy, was that a fun lineup. That was a glimpse at the future of Houston Rockets basketball, because that was literally 5/7 of your young core all in action at the same time. And in that was the Rockets' best lineup in this game, actually. They were a +9. They outscored the Knicks with that lineup. I want to double check, make sure I get the numbers right here. Plus minus, there it is, +9. They outscored the Knicks 15-6 in about a little over 3 minutes of run with that lineup on the floor. And I mean, it's something about just the way that those guys all played together, their willingness, their ability for certain guys to relocate and move without the basketball. Reed Sheppard does a fantastic job of like kind of drifting to his spots on the floor. Tari Eason crashing the glass. Jalen Green and Amen Thompson as kind of your dynamic ball handlers. Alperen Sengun is your offensive hub and focal point, where he was doing so much of the heavy lifting in this game. That lineup was a ton of fun, and they were wrecking shop. I mean, when that lineup took over, it was like maybe a 5-point game or whatever, and then the Rockets just went on this insane tear, and the Knicks really didn't have an answer. Now, unfortunately, we didn't see that lineup in the second half, and I don't really know why we didn't see it in the second half, because it was so good in the first half. And part of it, I think, is Ime's still juggling and figuring out his lineups. Case in point, he went with Reed Sheppard in this game, 14 minutes for Reed Sheppard, instead of Cam Whitmore. So Cam Whitmore, first D&P of the season. This is, it's unfortunate for Cam, and I don't think it's that he's doing anything wrong per se. It's just, it's really hard to fit a true 10-man rotation. It's really hard to let guys establish their rhythm. It's really hard to give guys consistent minutes where they can expect, okay, it's coming up on, few minutes left in the first quarter. Right, this is usually when I check in or whatever. It's really hard to establish your rotations, your patterns when you're trying to stretch everything to 10 guys deep. I joked for a little while that the Rockets have like a 9.5-man rotation, and it looks like, at least in this game, that Ime shortened it to 9. Now, maybe it's just matchup dependent. Maybe he just felt Reed Sheppard was the better pick in this game. Pardon me, instead of Cam Whitmore. And maybe next game it'll be Reed with the DNP, and Cam Whitmore will be the guy getting the 14, 15 minutes off the bench. Who knows? But at this point, that lineup that the Rockets ran, I want more of it. I need more of it. I need to see more of the Reed, Jalen, Amen, Tari, Sengun lineup, because that lineup was putting in absolute work. And something about the way that all of those players complement each other, their skill sets, it just all flows so perfectly. And I do think there's an argument you could hot swap Tari or Jabari. Either of them, I think, work in that lineup. I think Tari works maybe a little bit better because he understands a little bit more how to crash and how to cut and how to play off of guys like Sengun and Amen and Reed a little bit more. And he does a little bit more of the dirty work on the glass than Jabari does. But Jabari's still been solid. And this wasn't Jabari's game. It was a rough night for him. But that lineup was a ton of fun and easily one of the best parts of this game. Now, some of the other not so great parts of this game were were the fact that the Rockets have got to find a way to close quarters better. They have this frustrating issue when it comes to closing out quarters, closing out halves, whatever, of getting into a funk and then it just snowballing, right, and giving up these big leads. This Rockets team is talented enough to build the big leads, or they're talented enough to claw their way back out of a big deficit, but they need to become more consistent and disciplined and stick to the stuff that's been working for them. In particular, when they gave up the 10-0 run just before halftime, right? They were up 15 against the Knicks. You could have gone into halftime. You could have built upon that lead. You could have gone into halftime up as many as 20 against the Knicks. Instead, you let them reel off a 10-0 run off of mistakes, sloppy offensive possessions, ill-advised shots. Like, it was not a great showing there going into halftime. And a small portion of that, and I won't rag on him too much because, again, Fred got off to a really strong start in this game. But after Fred's first quarter, in fact, I want to double check. What was he in the first quarter? Let me make sure I get these numbers pulled up. In the first quarter, Fred was 6 of 8 shooting in the first quarter. He had 14 points, 6 of 8 shooting, and 4 assists in the first quarter. That's great. Fred got off to a fantastic start in this game and kind of set the tone for the Rockets. But unfortunately, that means that for the rest of the game, after his strong first quarter, for the rest of the game, Fred only had 5 points and 1 assist the rest of the way. Like, that's, and again, the process in that first quarter was less than ideal, I think. Like, he was hitting some ridiculous, like, contested mid-range twos and you know, it's just shots that you don't really want Fred VanVleet taking. And he had a quote post-game where he said, I'll take any shot. I'll shoot it when I'm 0 of 20 or 20 for 20. I'll take any shot. And he also followed it up by saying he doesn't play for Twitter. He plays to win. And so clearly, like, Fred's, seen some of the commentary from people ragging on him, from fans ragging on him on social media about his slow start to the season. It was encouraging to see him get off to a strong start, but those are also not the shots you really want Fred taking within the flow of a game, because ideally, Fred is taking anywhere from like 8 to 12 shots a night, and a majority of them should probably be threes that are generated off of the looks created from guys like Jalen, like Sengun, like Amen Thompson off the bench, or even, actions that he generates where he starts the offensive action and gets things rolling, gets the defense in rotation, whatever, kicks it to the, gets the Rockets set in whatever their offense is, and then the ball finds him later in the possession. But some of the looks where he's like coming off a screen and he's, leaning into a three, or the contested twos, like, yeah, they went down this game, but how often are they actually going to go down? How often is he going to have a quarter where he puts up 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting, with a majority of the offense coming from inside the arc? That's just not his game, right? That's not Fred's game. Fred's game is to be a knockdown 3-point shooter, to take good care of the basketball, and to set up the Rockets offense and let other guys shine. Obviously, you're going to need games where Fred's going to have to step it up offensively, and I'm glad he was able to do that in the first quarter. But he also kind of mucked it up a little bit at points, like going into halftime, right? There were points where Fred kind of, mucked up the offense a little bit, slowed things down, took some bad shots, even during stretches in that fourth quarter. And that's the concern, is you need to see Fred, and it's a very delicate balance for Fred, right? Where he's got to be able to set the table, involve all the other guys, get guys going, take care of the basketball, while also be able to knock down his shots, and also deciding, okay, does he need to step up and hit some shots, or do the Rockets have enough offensive production from all the other guys in a given game to where Fred can take a backseat and only worry about facilitating? It feels weird to harp on a guy for scoring 19 points on 8 of 14 shooting, but that's kind of where we're at, right? There's a very high bar, a level of expectations for the version of Fred VanVleet that this team needs. And if Fred could do this on a nightly basis, by all means, do it. It just doesn't feel like that's the right process, because 9 times out of 10, Fred attempts those shots in another game against different defenders in a different situation. Those shots probably aren't going in, and it probably looks a lot worse, and it probably looks more like one of those games where Fred struggled in the earlier part of the season instead of a game where he actually looks decent, 19 on 8 of 14 again. And the other concerning part is still he was only 1 of 5 from 3. The one 3 that he hit was the one from like all the way out in like Deer Park. Like he was just in suburbia when he drained that 3 at the end of the shot clock for the Rockets. So still struggling from beyond the arc, but that's not really news since the Rockets as a team struggled from beyond the arc. Again, only 24.2% shooting from deep in this game. God, the Rockets just need some better shooting. If they could just get some better shooting, it would be lights out. One other note, the Rockets bench, highlighted so much of the the production off the Rockets bench. Amen Thompson, Tari Eason was great in this game, although, Ime not going so hard with his minutes after he basically gassed him out against the Warriors. Tari was strong in this game. Steven Adams played his role well. And again, Reed Sheppard looking quite a bit more aggressive in this one, very much looking and hunting his shot a little bit more in this one. 8 shot attempts for Reed Sheppard in this game. The Rockets bench combined for 30 points to only 3 points by the Knicks bench. Again, the Knicks are an incredibly top-heavy team, and the fact that Tom Thibodeau's already running what is essentially a 7-man rotation, what is this, 6 games into the season for the Knicks, is the most on-brand Tom Thibodeau thing that I think I've ever seen. Now, the Knicks do have a couple guys out, so, things will get better if they get Mitchell Robinson back and all that, but maybe Mitchell Robinson just eats up the Jericho Sims minutes, 16 minutes, and then that's it, and Sims is getting DNPs. One other note from this game, Alperen Sengun, not only did he have his dominant performance, but he also crushed it on the replay center, because there was a point early in this game where Sengun was D'ing up, I think it was Bridges, it was either Bridges or Anunoby, one of the Knicks wings, and ball goes out of bounds, and they originally called it off Houston, and Alp, literally every single time there's a dead ball, a foul call, whatever, he turns to the bench and he's, review it. And this time, Ime looked at him and he was like, all right, I got you. And he did the review. He glanced at the bench. Rockets confirmed. So they reviewed it. And there was the camera panned over the Rockets bench, and you could see Sengun's reaction when it was announced that the call was overturned, and he was just like, oh, like he had a moment of like, thank goodness, like finally, they listened to me. The Podfather weekly co-host Ben Dubose joked that when the statue of Alperen Sengun eventually goes up in Houston, it's going to be Sengun doing the replay signal with his fingers. God, it was so funny. But no, it was a great game, a great win for the Rockets. I want to know your favorite part about this game. I want to know your most important takeaway, or again, just say go Rockets in the YouTube comments. It helps us out a ton. Remember, the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform you're choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop the comments like I already alluded to. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.